I've already done a ton of hyping for the Delcatty Oracle combo. You play Oracle, you put 2 cards on top of your deck, then you use Energy Draw off of Delcatty to draw directly into those 2 cards, plus 1 more, as long as you have an energy card in your hand to discard. Let's add another piece to that combo with Magneton from Dragon. Its magnetic field power allows you to discard a card from your hand and retrieve 2 basic energy cards from your discard, putting them back into your hand, ensuring that you will have another basic energy card in your hand to discard for Delcatty, but it also ensures that you're going to have at least 1 extra energy in your hand for Swampert. Yes, in case you somehow missed the title of this video, we're talking about a Swampert deck here. Its Water Call Pokepower allows you to play an extra water energy every turn, but you have to make sure you have that extra energy in hand before you can play it, and you don't want to get overly reliant on your draw power to get those basics into your hand. But with the constant cycling of Delcatty and Magneton, you're always going to have a supply of those energies to drop. Hypno Splash is a bit underwhelming as an attack, so we're not going to be flooding this Swampert. Instead, we're going to be putting them on the big boy Swampert, Swampert EX. With Hyper Pump, adding that extra energy every turn is going to matter a ton because that's an extra 20 damage you're going to be dealing with Hyper Pump. The attack will cap at 100 damage. It's not like you can just flood and deal tons and tons of damage, but you also have a sniping option in Crushing Wave. So even if your opponent throws some bulky fodder into the active position that is just supposed to soak up all these Hyper Pumps, well, you can start slapping around their bench Pokemon, dealing 40 damage and potentially making them discard energy. And with 150 HP, you are very likely to get off multiple attacks, so this is a difficult Pokemon to deal with. And that's the core gameplay for the deck. Let's get into the specifics and look at the full list. So of course we are going to be starting off with Mudkip, using the one from Ruby and Sapphire. It's got 50 HP, which is not bad for a starting Pokemon. 2 copies of Marshtomp in here just in case you need to work your way up through the evolution line, playing around ATM Rock. And then we do have 4 Swampert. We're going to be splitting 2 and 2. 2 are the more of the support Swampert that has the Water Call Pokepower, and the other 2 are going to be your main attacking Swampert EX. We'll get 2 Skitty from Sandstorm, and then 2 of the Energy Draw Delcatty from Ruby and Sapphire. In addition to that, we have 2 Magnemite from Dragon, and the 2 Magneton from Dragon. All of these combo pieces working together in exactly the way I described in the intro. The only pieces that we didn't already go over are the 4 Dunsparce, which is in here purely for setup. It's an amazing setup Pokemon. If you're building a deck in 2004, you put Dunsparce in there. This deck has a lot of pieces that you want to search your deck and find, and Dunsparce is going to allow you to do that for 1 energy. And then the very last thing down here at the bottom, we have Suicune EX, which is another alternative attacker in this deck. Its reverse stream attack costs 3 energy, deals 50 damage. When you use this attack, you may return all basic energy cards attached to Suicune to your hand. If you do that, then every energy card that gets returned to your hand does 10 additional damage. So if you've been flooding the board, you get a bunch of water energy on this Suicune, you use reverse stream, you blow all those back to your hand, you're not going to be put in that bad of a position, because if you have Swampert in play, you're going to be able to play an extra water energy next turn anyway, so even if you just want to power up the same Suicune EX again, it's going to be fairly easy. And then on to our trainer base, starting with the draw power, one of my favorite cards, TV Reporter. Just hard draw power to also let you discard a card, which can go ahead and chuck an energy into your discard and get you all set up for that recycling cycle. We also have 4 copies of Oracle in here because we're using Delcatty, so why not use Oracle to smooth out all of your draws, to guarantee you are drawing the 2 cards you need most every single time that you're using Delcatty. On top of that, we also got 2 copies of Steven's Advice, which is just more straight draw power, and then 2 copies of Underground Expedition for those scenarios where you have an idea what's on the top of your deck, you don't want to draw into them right now, you want to leave them where they're at, perhaps to draw off of another effect. Well, you have Underground Expedition that lets you draw from the bottom of your deck instead. 2 copies of Professor Elm's training method to search out those evolution cards. Dunsparce is going to be able to get all your basics. Professor Elm's training is going to get those evolution cards for you. Once you have those evolution cards, 3 copies of Rare Candy that's going to let you jump straight from Mudkip into Swampert whenever you feel safe to do so. You do want to avoid getting hit with ATM Rock as much as possible because Swampert EX got a whopping 150 HP, but that doesn't mean a whole lot if you get knocked back down to a Mudkip and you already have 50 damage on you. There are some rare cases too where you're gonna want to rare candy directly from a Skitty to a Delcatty or a Magnemite into a Magneton. If you really need to get that full engine going this turn, you can go ahead and utilize Rare Candy to take care of that, get those evolution cards into play more quickly. While we're talking about evolution cards, I do want to mention the 2 copies of Mystery Zone. This is a stadium card that you don't see often. Once during each player's turn, if you have an evolution card in your hand, you can go search your deck for a basic energy card. You put that basic energy card in your hand, then you show your opponent the evolution card and you shuffle it back into your deck. You're essentially just trading out an evolution card in your hand for a basic energy card, which is not going to be very useful for your opponent if they're not running a similar deck. Now for this deck, if you've got a Magneton in your hand and you already have one on the bench, you don't necessarily need 2, you would rather just have the energy in your hand so that you can drop it with Swampert, then you just flash it to your opponent, get the energy out of your deck, send that Magneton back home. If there are any of these key Pokemon that get gusted out and knocked out, we have a copy of Town Volunteers in here. That way you can retrieve those Delcatties and Skitties whenever you need to. You can even use it as a way to get water energy back into your deck if you're running low. That way you have something to draw off of the top. And then because the Swamperts have really high retreat costs, you want to make sure you have some insurance in case they get hit with a special condition. You're able to get them out of that spot. That's where Switch is going to come in. We got a couple copies of Switch in here. Even Suicune EX, which you wouldn't think would have a retreat cost of 2, can be a little difficult to get out of the active position, especially if it gets stranded there and you're not able to repower reverse stream as fast. And then topping off the deck, we do have 3 copies of Multi-Energy, just in case you're in a situation where it makes sense to attack with Magneton. You want to be able to make sure you have the energy to actually do so. You can probably catch your opponent off guard some games. They're going to be looking out for Swampert and Suicune. They are not going to be looking out for a Magnetic Force. And then to top the deck off, we have 12 Water Energy. Of course, it's going to be very important that you get those to the top of your deck and draw them as quickly as possible. You always want to have at least 2 Water Energy in your hand so they can't be sitting around in your deck for too long. If you're looking at the top decks across the 2004 format, such as 2004 World, a nice little cross-section of all the top decks of that year, you won't see this deck pop up, which is a little weird considering how powerful it can be. That is in the Masters division. But if you pop over to the Juniors division, you will see Swampert right up there at the top with Team Magma's Groudon, which was the winning deck across all 3 divisions, which does speak a lot to the playability of this deck. It's extremely powerful, it's extremely easy to pilot, but it's also pretty easy to counter. Muck EX absolutely savages Swampert. Decks like Team Magma's Groudon and Blaziken EX were a little too fast for it to keep up with. They didn't give it the time to get all those water energy on the board. Blaziken EX in particular could snipe Marsh Stomps off of the bench. They could even hit Suicune EX for lethal. A lot of these energy efficient decks ran Rayquaza EX as a hard counter to Swampert. Not only did it resist it, but it could also hit hard enough to make 150 HP on Swampert not that much of a hurdle. So if you are running into a lot of Rayquaza as a Swampert player, you want to include copies of Crystal Shard. This is going to make it so that Rayquaza cannot resist you anymore. It also allows you to hit Rayquaza for super effective damage. There are more efficient builds of this deck where you completely cut the Delcatty, you cut the Magneton. It's just the Swampert line and then 4 Dunsparce. That way you can run stuff like Fastball, Master Ball to just get into those evolutions faster, evolve into Swampert faster, and then it uses Island Cave as the support stadium just to keep the Swamperts healthy while they're in those active positions because retreating is such a pain. This version is faster, it's more streamlined, but it's not as consistent and it is not built for the late game. If you're not locking it up on turn 5 or 6, then you're in for a rough time. That is the build. Hit me with your comments on what version of Swampert you think is best. If you like what I'm doing here on the channel, hit me with all that YouTube stuff just to help me out. Like, comment, give me a sub. I will see you guys next video. Thanks for watching. Bye.